Just a quick introduction. Revit is what we call a BIM software. Okay, so BIM, it stands for Building Information Modeling. So it's a program that we use to model buildings, nothing else. Okay, so if you want to, not like a generic 3D modeling software like Rhino, for example, where you can model jewelry, you can model like different stuff. Revit is a building modeling software. The second word is information. Okay, so you'll see that everything in the software is like information driven. You see that everything has like properties, and you can change the properties of whatever elements that you model. So you can basically change or manipulate the information of whatever you model, and you can also extract the information at the end. So if you want to get like bill of quantities, check the information that you input in your model or the data in your model, you can do that quite easily because it audits or it keeps track of all the information that you input. Yeah, the third word, it's modeling. So it's a 3D modeling software. It's not 2D. It's 3D and 2D at the same time. So you will see like how all the views are coordinated at the same time. Okay, let's get started. In your Revit screen, you can find models and you can find families. Okay, most of the time you'll be working with models. So models, it means projects, it means buildings. I want to create a project, I will create a model, okay? Families is a term that Revit uses to refer to components, okay? So if I want to model a building component, like I want to model a door, a window, a bespoke table, a kitchen unit, like if you want to model any single component, you can model it as a family. In most cases, you'll be creating models right away, and you'll be using ready-made components, ready-made families. You will get ready-made doors, ready-made windows, ready-made furniture, okay? And in the intermediate to advanced course, we'll be discussing how to create families from scratch, but it's not something that you really need to know to work with Revit. It's something that comes at a later stage, okay? In the model section, please click on New. Let's do this together. Hold your mouse, find the models section here, okay? And below you can find New. Please click on it. When you start a new model, Revit prompts you to choose the template. What is a template? The template is a file that has certain settings, like certain unit setup, for example. It can be metric or it can be imperial, like it's in feet and inch, right? It can also have like certain ready-made families that can be used or certain ready-made components that can be used. Okay, so let's make sure that we're all choosing the same template to make sure that we all have the same components. So if I build a wall or if I model a wall, we all have the same wall, the same thickness, the same everything. So in that drop-down menu, you can find here some templates. They can be different from what is on my screen, depending on the version of Revit that you're using. So you might find architectural template, construction template. You might find different templates listed here, okay? It doesn't matter which one is chosen here because I'm gonna click on Browse and I'll go pick the right template that I'm expecting like all of us to be using, okay? So let's do this together. Let's click on Browse, okay? Next to the template name here, let's click on Browse. Revit has taken me to the English Imperial folder. Okay, I will click on this folder here and go back to templates and then go to English. Templates and then English, okay? So instead of looking inside the Imperial templates, I went to the non-Imperial templates, like metric templates, okay? So I went to the English, default English metric templates, okay? For Teresa and Nikolai, I expect that they will find a lot of templates here because full Revit comes with more templates, but you should be able to find LT is only for live version. You should be able to find default GBRENU or LT default GBRENU. GBRENU, I think it stands for Great Britain Residential New Unit, something like that. Okay, so it's like a default template in the UK, okay? If you don't find default GBRENU, you should be able to find something called architectural template, use it, okay? So architectural template is the same as the default GBRENU template. Again, as I said, we might be using different versions, so it might come with different templates, okay? So I'm telling you which template is equivalent to which in the different versions. Okay, please let me know if you couldn't find any of these templates. If you couldn't find the default GBRENU or LT default GBRENU, or if you couldn't find also the architectural template, please let me know so we get to fix that together. Everything is all right. Okay, I picked the GB RENU template. I'll click on open, and then I'll click on OK down there to start my Revit project. As you can see on the left-hand side, I have two windows or two palettes. The one on top is called Properties, and the one below it is called Project Browser. Okay. At some point, I might move one of the windows like to the other side, but maybe we can do this later. Okay, let's just first explore the software, explore the interface, and understand how to navigate in the project. Okay, so on the left side, you have these two important palettes, Properties and Project Browser. We use the Project Browser to move from one view to another. So as you can see here in my Project Browser, I can see floor plans, and inside floor plans, I can see level 0, right? And level 0 is bold, which means that's the open view. Okay. And also, if you check the top of my screen of my drawing canvas, so this is the drawing canvas, I should be drawing things here, right? If you look at the top, like the name of this tab, it's called level 0. Okay. So when I see here level 0, it means that I'm working inside level 0. As you can see, also, we have 4 bubbles around the building or the area where we're going to model our buildings. Don't worry about these. These are the 4 elevations. We can move them later. We can delete them. We can do whatever you want with them. But these are the 4 elevations. Okay. If I check my project browser here, I can, for example, find elevations. If there is a plus sign next to it, I can expand it. And when I expand it, I can see the 4 elevations inside. Okay. To open any view in Revit, you should double click on the view name. For example, I want to go to the east elevation. I just want to check it. So I can double click on east, right? And when I do this, I can see that the east elevation is now open, right? And I can now see the side of the building. Of course, there is no building yet. I can see the horizontal datums, the levels, but there is no geometry yet, but that's the east elevation. If I double click on north elevation, I can see the north elevation. Okay. Of course, I can zoom in and zoom out using my mouse wheel, zooming forward and backward. If I want to get back to level 0, I can double click on level 0 to open level 0 again. So this is how you jump from one view to another. You basically find the view that you want to open and you double click on it. Okay. So it's a double click. It's not a single click. It's a double click. You double click on the view to open it. And if you want to close any of these views, you can just click on close here. If you feel like you have a lot of tabs open and you want to close some of them, you can absolutely do that. You can close the tabs. Okay. There is also a 3D view. So there is a plus sign here next to 3D views. If I expand it, I can find 3D, this 3D view between brackets. If I double click on it, I can find the 3D view. Okay. So let's please do this together. Let's go to the 3D view. Again, you can zoom in and you can zoom out using your mouse wheel. In your views, you can pan the view by dragging the wheel of the mouse. So if you click on the mouse wheel and you drag, like this is panning, right? So I'll be zooming in and zooming out, and then I'll pan as well. And if I drag the wheel while holding Shift on the keyboard, so let's try this together. If I keep holding Shift on the keyboard, and then I drag the wheel of the mouse, that's orbiting the 3D view, right? So I can orbit the 3D view doing this by holding Shift and dragging the mouse wheel. Okay. So these are controls to navigate in your 3D view. I'll get back to the 2D view, like the level 0 view, the floor plan. I'll double click on level 0. Again, I can zoom in, I can zoom out, I can pan. Of course, I cannot orbit here because it's a 2D view, so it doesn't allow you like to orbit, do 3D orbiting. Okay, so the 3D views are the ones that will allow you to orbit your 3D geometry. Cool. Let's create a couple of walls. I'll go to the architecture tab. Before I click on the wall command, let's look at something here. The properties. So before I click on the wall command, the properties here they display the properties of floor plan level 0. As soon as I click on the wall command, I'll see the properties here changing to the properties of the wall that I'm going to draw. Okay. If I want to cancel this command, I will press escape a couple of times on the keyboard. Okay. So I'll press escape a couple of times, and I can see the properties will switch back to the default properties display. So if you have an active command like wall command, you will see the properties of the wall that you are going to draw. If you click on the door command, you will see the properties of the door that you're going to draw. If you click on the window command, you will see the properties of the window that you're going to place. If you're not in the middle of any command, then the properties will be showing the properties of the view that you're in. I mean, level 0 has certain properties, like it has a certain display scale, for example, so I can change the scale of the drawing. I can tweak the presentation of my view a little bit. So the default properties here are the view properties, like how your building is displayed, okay, how you're presenting things in your view. As soon as you click on any command, as soon as you click on the wall command, you will see the properties of the wall that you're going to draw. If you click on the door command, you will see the door properties and so on. Okay. To exit any command in Revit, you can press escape a couple of times to make sure that no command is active. So I do this actually quite a lot. After every command, I just press escape a couple of times to make sure I'm not accidentally drawing anything. So please put your left hand here on the keyboard, on this part of the keyboard. We'll use the escape key quite a lot after each and every command. So I usually put my left hand here on the keyboard, my right hand on the mouse. And using my left hand, I'll be pressing escape after each command. I'll be also, you know this already, pressing shift in 3D, like to orbit in 3D. So we'll be using these keys quite a lot: escape, shift, control, tab. I'll show you why or how we'll use these keys later. But yeah, it's good to know that you need to press escape after each and every command. Let's draw a wall. So in the architecture tab, I'll click on the wall command. Let's do it together. Okay, so let's click on the wall command. When you click on the wall command, you can see the cursor of your mouse is changing. It's like in drawing mode, right? Before that, it was like selection mode. So you can see it was in selection mode. As soon as I click on the wall command, I have this kind of plus sign, this cursor that shows me that I'm drawing things. And let's draw walls. I can see here the build-up chosen. I'm not changing that. I'll accept all default settings. I'm not changing any of the properties, but I'll draw a couple of walls here in my drawing canvas. So I will click, right? And you can see like a wall is getting drawn. In fact, what I'm doing here, I'm drawing a line, right? And Revit is drawing a wall based on that line. So to draw a line, you specify the start point, and then you specify the end point. So to specify the end point here, I can click specify the end point, right? If I want to keep going, I can go down, for example, click, go right, click, go down, click. You see, I'm just drawing a chain of walls. If you're drawing a wall and you want the wall to have a certain length, so you're drawing a wall and you want it to have a certain length, instead of clicking to specify the endpoint, instead of clicking yourself, you can put the distance and press enter. For example, if I want this wall to be like 4,000 millimeters long, I can type 4,000 and then press enter. So now Revit will draw a wall that's 4,000 millimeters long. Okay. If you want to finish that command, you can press escape, not once, a couple of times. Okay, because if I press once, Revit is still drawing a wall actually. Okay, so the command is still active even after pressing escape. And that's why I'm telling you, I just keep pressing escape to cancel to cancel everything. So we drew a bunch of walls in level 0. Okay, let's have a look at these in 3D. So I can find 3D views and double click on 3D, or To find your 3D view, we have a quick access 3D view symbol, like this little house. If you click on it, it will take you to the 3D view right away. Instead of finding the view in the list, this button is quite easy to find. So I'll click on 3D. Now I can see the walls. I can orbit my view by pressing Shift on the keyboard and dragging the mouse wheel, right? And I can see the walls. The colors are a bit dark here, especially on the projected screen. So I'm gonna change the display of my view to black and white presentation. I think it's better and easier to see. So there is like a blue box down there. This is the display style chosen right now. It's shaded at the moment. I will change it to hidden line. Okay, so I'll change the display style to hidden line. I'll find hidden line. So now that's a black and white presentation. It's easier to load and it's also clearer. Let's talk about selection. So we modeled a bunch of walls. Okay, to select an element, you can see that if you hover over any of the walls, you can see there is like a blue highlight. This is a pre-selection highlight. I haven't selected anything, but there is a blue highlight. If I click on the wall, Revit will actually, what's happening? Revit will actually select. Okay, so this pre-selection highlight, it just helps me know what will be selected if I click, so I don't select things by mistake. So when I hover over the element and I find what I want to select, I can just click to select it. If I want to select another wall, I can select the other wall. And you can see that Revit will always remove the previous selection. Unlike, for example, I can see that some of you have been using AutoCAD. In AutoCAD, by default, if you select one element and then you go select another element, Revit adds, AutoCAD adds to the selection, right? In Revit, it doesn't do that. It's more like SketchUp and other programs as well. To add to your selection, you need to press Control on the keyboard. Okay, so if I select one wall and then I'm like, I want to select another wall as well, I can hold Control on the keyboard and you keep holding. It's not one press, it's keep holding. And you can see that when you hold Control on the keyboard, you can see there is a plus sign beside your mouse. So you understand that the selection is now in addition mode, right? So it's gonna be adding to your selection. If I hold Shift on the keyboard, Shift does the opposite. So Shift is used to remove from selection. So Control to add, Shift to remove or deselect. If you forget, you'll do trial and error, or you can watch the sign, the plus or minus sign that will show beside the cursor. So yeah, Control adds, Shift is a minus sign, which means it deselects. Okay. To change the properties of any element, you can select the element or the elements and change them together. Let's say I want to change the height for 2 of these walls. I think we've all modeled like a bunch of walls. I'm going to select a couple of them. So I'll select one wall, hold Control, and then select another wall. And then I'll change some of the properties. After selecting a couple of walls, I can go check the properties, and I can see something called unconnected height. So the unconnected height right now, it's 8,000, which means that the height of the wall is 8,000 millimeters. Okay, let's say I want to change it to, I don't know, 5,000, for example. I'll type 5,000 and press enter. So Revit will adjust the height of these two walls. Okay, and to deselect or cancel, like exit the selection, I can press escape a couple of times to deselect everything. So again, you can select an element or elements and change their properties. And then as soon as you deselect them, the properties will reset again to the default properties. I think you've seen that. You select an element, you find its properties, you can change those properties. You press escape, the element is deselected. The properties now are the general properties. They are not this element's properties anymore. Okay, so you can change the properties before drawing the element or during the modeling process or after finishing things. You can place things and then select them and then change the properties later. Or you can you can model a wall, and as you model it, you can change the height, for example, and then you can I'll add a couple of walls here. Okay, so now if I go to the 3D view, I can see these walls. They come already with the height that I input in the properties right away. Okay, so you can do it on the fly, or you can also change the properties later after you finish things. Of course, it's better to edit things on the fly, like you do things, you know what you're doing before doing it. So you think before you draw, because also you might forget to change things after you model them. You might forget that this wall was following like a wrong height or something like that. So it's usually a better practice to check the properties of what you draw before you actually go ahead and draw it. Okay. I'll get back to level 0. Okay. I'll click on the wall again. So one thing I need to mention here, when I was drawing these walls, I told you it's like you're drawing a line, right? And Revit is drawing a wall based on that line. So as you can see here, when I was drawing a wall, I was basically drawing a line, and Revit was like creating the wall thickness on both sides of that line. Okay. In fact, you don't have to draw a line. When I click on the wall command, you can see that we have a bunch of drawing tools here. So it can be a line, can be a rectangle, can be a circle, ellipse. So we have a bunch of drawing tools. I'll show you some of them. Of course, not all of them, but I just want you to observe this area where you have the drawing tools, because we'll be using that later. As soon as I click on the wall command, you can see that my wall can be based on a line. That was the default tool, which means that I'll draw a line and Revit will draw a wall that's based on that line. Okay. If I choose a rectangle, for example, now I'll be drawing a rectangle, and Revit will be drawing walls that are based on that rectangle. If I use a circle, I can draw a circle, and Revit will be drawing a wall that's based on that circle. If I use an arc, this arc is, by the way, if you don't know how to use any of these tools, all you need to do is just leave your mouse on it a little bit, and it will explain to you how to use that tool. So that arc, for example, to draw it, you need to place 3 points as the drawing shows. The first point, the last point, and the point in the middle. Okay, so the first point, the last point, and then a point in the middle, or the radius. Okay, so you can explore these. We'll be exploring these drawing tools together, actually. Just wanted to let you know that it's not just a line-based element. We have a bunch of tools, drawing tools, that we'll be using to place our walls and to place our Revit elements in general. Okay. Again, to cancel, I'll press escape a couple of times, like to exit the wall command. So yeah, so that's a quick introduction to the interface.